is a privilege. This is the essence of why we exist. Leadership comes with a strong and profound responsibility. There is 1.4 billion Africans in the African continent, and you as a leader are part of the 0.1% that will decide the future of the 1.4 billion. The privilege you have to have been chosen comes with a responsibility. It's a responsibility to serve. Until we understand the why we exist, the why we were chosen, it is not possible to serve. This is a call to action for all leaders in all spheres: political, government, private sector, you name it, international organizations. This is a call to action to say, well, how are you using your privilege? Can you respond to the call that is required when you're at the top? When you're at the top, it means you need to remember the 80% at the bottom of the pyramid. 1.4 billion Africans are waiting for opportunities to have the same privilege that you leaders have had, to have the access to basic information, to knowledge, to knowing, the privilege to participate in the economy. It's a responsibility from every leader to say, who did I leave behind? Even if you do not start with the 1.4 billion, you start with the community that you were born in. You start from where you come from and say, how do I give back? How do I reward the privilege I've been given? How do I create conditions to make sure that 80% of the population has access, is included? It is not charity. It is not a favor we are doing for our fellow Africans, the ones we left behind, who still sleep without 3 meals a day, the ones who are still hoping to go to school one day, the ones who are hoping to be alive because there was a health system that works. It's not the, if we can't resolve that and include everyone to make sure that there are no spectators, everyone is participating, then we can ensure sustainability. Because even your businesses, even your products, your services, they are deficient if they do not address the new markets. This is not charity. This is not social responsibility. It's the sustainability of your business. Your business depends on creating new markets at the bottom of the pyramid. So if you are in the financial industry, your business, until such time you have created financial solutions and products for everyone, you will be limited to the 10%. But let me remind you that the buying power of the 10%, it's limited. So if you're producing cars, everyone that can buy a car, you can only have so many cars. One person can only need so many cars. So everybody who has got buying power has bought all the cars. So who are you going to sell the new cars to? So if we don't bring the 80%, we are denying ourselves of the opportunity to have a poverty museum. Because when we do the inclusion, we don't even need to call inclusive products, because in fact, they should have been included. So economists, I am an economist by profession in one of the best institutions in the world, but I failed the 80%, and I honor that responsibility as a leader myself, as an entrepreneur, as a teacher, as a trainer. I own the responsibility to say I could have done better, because I did not challenge enough. We economists, all of us, we did not challenge the status quo, the base within which we're creating our economic models. when we define country's GDP, the gross domestic product, if we're establishing how wealthy a country is, we limited ourselves to things that are measurable, because that's what we could understand. What we could not understand, we excluded it. That's how we excluded the bottom of the pyramid, because it was because of our failure to go deeper within ourselves and come and design models that are based on a solid foundation that says we are going to include everyone. And this is a call to action to say to every leader, it's not about helping the 80% or the bottom of the pyramid or the poor, because one of those people who are in that rural area, every leader sitting in any institution, driving and leading any institution, has left a poor person in their community, in their own families. So the bottom of the pyramid is actually a part of so who have you left behind? No, it's not strange 1.4 billion Africans. It's some of them are your relatives, some of them, and if you cannot bring all of them, they will drag you down. So it's fruitless to be doing this with 10%. It's not enough. It's not nearly enough. So one of the propositions that I would like to leave with all of the leaders, come from self. Come from self. Until such time, we can all come from our individual sovereignty. Before we talk about country sovereignty, before we talk about global, before we talk about any external sovereignty, if we can come from self, there is going to be no doubt about the decisions we make. The strategies are not relevant. The actions are not relevant until this purpose. Until we come from individual sovereignty with a purpose. With a purpose to say, why do I exist? Because if you're not serving, you're not a leader. You cannot be categorized as a leader. Until such time you feel it in your heart that the 80% is your brother, is your sister, is your fellow African that is underprivileged and hopes to be where you are. Until such time you garner the courage to go deeper and say, where do I come from? Why? Was I an accident? Because otherwise it's an accident, because you're not adding value, you're not creating the wealth that the African continent has. Africa is wealthy. We are one of the wealthiest continents in the world, if not the wealthiest. We've got the resources, we've got the creativity, we've got culture. In fact, the gross domestic product must start to say, how do we measure the wealth of a country on the basis of happiness, on the basis of cultural product, cultural capital, on the basis of creative capital? How do we use that to open the Poverty Museum? Until such time we don't change the narrative at that level, every other meeting we're doing is null and void. It's another cost, wasteful expenditure, unnecessary. So I challenge all the leaders, do not allow yourselves to be in a meeting and you leave that meeting without a call for action, for real change. You are not doing a favor to the poor. They are wealthy. Because if we begin to understand, remember we accumulate knowledge. There's a knowledge asymmetry. We consume external knowledge. We consume Western knowledge. And we don't produce our own knowledge. But the power, because if I were to swap the wealthy to go and spend time in the rural areas, no, just give it 1 year, no, give it 1 month, no, 1 week, you will not survive. They have been there for hundreds of years and they are the most innovative. They've found ways to survive without our interventions. They found ways to innovate, to stay alive. So the decision, the limited decision of taking action, of serving, is killing people and killing the dream, the African dream. I would like to call up to African leaders to rise up. Bring the fellows. Nelson Mandela gave up something. He gave up 27 years. I do not care about the weaknesses that he exudes as a human being, because we are all weak, but where can we learn from somebody who gave his life. And when they did that, they were youngsters. He was a young lawyer. He was a youngsters. They would meet in shebeens. They would meet in corners in people's houses. They were young, with no phones, with no WhatsApp, with no resources, but they did more than we've collectively done. Samora Machel. Where do they get this individual sovereignty from? This is the call. Why do we only have so few? Martin Luther King. Why do we have so few that are ready to die? Because that's the quest. Until such time we're ready to die for the cause. We're not ready. We're not ready. And this is not about us. It's about the future generation. And let me tell you something. If we fail to do this, it's your children that will be as poor as the bottom of the pyramid. They will have nobody to play with. They will have nobody to sell to. It's about the future generations. This is the time for us to stand up and bring out what is most powerful about Africa. Our spirit, the wealth, our spiritual capital is what must drive us. Maybe we should start measuring gross happiness, gross domestic happiness, gross domestic culture, gross domestic creativity. Economists, challenge yourselves. We can do better. We can do better. There's no economy that functions on the basis of 10%. And 90% is a telespectator and watching. Let us find the Eduardo Mondlanes in each of us. Let us find the Robert Mugabes from each of us. Let us find the Thabo Mbekis for each of us. Let us find the leaders who serve from purpose, who serve from reason. Why do I exist? This is the call to action. Thank you.